Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. The English phrase to go up in flames means to be utterly destroyed. Yesterday in the news, I heard that one of our fast food takeaways has gone up in flames. To go up in flames is something which our media use a lot to talk about something which has been completely ravaged by fire. The takeaway that went up in flames yesterday was our local Subway shop. Now, you know the meaning of Subway in English. It basically means metro. Or it can mean an underground passage which you walk through if you're trying to cross the road. But instead of going across the road, you can use the subway and go under the road. In America, the subway is usually used to describe the metro system. In the UK, we do use that word subway sometimes, especially for smaller subways, but it's also used to describe an underground passage. Anyway, this shop, which went up in flames last night, was Subway. Subway is a famous sandwich shop. I don't usually use it because Subway has too much bread. Whenever I order anything from Subway, it's just bread with a tiny little bit of filling in the middle. And it's always quite awkward for British people to use Subway because we don't really know what all those sauces are. In Subway, if you order, let's say, a tomato sandwich, they have something like 12 different sauces that they ask about. Would you like this garlic sauce? What about this red mayonnaise sauce? What about red chili sauce? And it's never clear what these sauces actually are. So I always avoid them. And they're always really brightly colored, which makes me think that perhaps they're loaded with artificial colors or sugar. The bread tastes kind of sweet as well and strangely toasted. Subway isn't a shop that I like. Even to go in for a coffee is a little bit difficult sometimes. The place is often, well, I wouldn't say it's dirty, but it just doesn't look very nice. I don't know, it's just not the kind of shop that I would go into. So when I heard that Subway went up in flames last night, I was not pleased, but it was something that, let's say, didn't disappoint me. Yes. Anyway, there are at least 3 or 4 subways in my town. I don't know why. I mean, Subway is certainly not a popular fast food venue. And looking at it, they're always very kind of strangely small and pokey places. So when it went up in flames, I had a warm feeling in my mind. But of course, I was very happy that nobody was hurt. Speaking of going up in flames, another news story that's circulating around the UK these days is about the disgraced TV presenter Philip Schofield. His career went up in flames last week. Now, I spoke about him a few days ago on another podcast. But it looks like this story really just isn't going away. Let me explain. Philip Schofield has had a very successful career on television. He first started when I was a child with a little puppet called Gordon the Gopher. whatever that is, I don't know. He was very good. I liked him. And then, as the years passed, he got involved in more serious programming. Until recently, he was the host of a morning magazine TV show called This Morning. Unfortunately for Philip Schofield, it became clear that he had some kind of romantic involvement with a younger colleague who was only 20 years old. Philip Schofield is 61. Now, personally, I don't see that as any problem. Surely this is private. It's not something that's should be made public, except that he was married to a woman at the time. And also, I believe he had some contract with his boss, which said that he wasn't allowed to have some kind of romantic involvement with colleagues. So, when all of this came to light, the TV company, ITV, immediately fired him. And of course, since then, he's been giving speeches and talks saying sorry that he broke everyone's trust. Now, I'm sure many of us have lied to our bosses at different times. I don't really see the issue of a 60-year-old and a 20-year-old being an issue. And the fact that he was married to a woman is something between him and his wife. So I really don't know why this story isn't going away. But now it's getting a little bit dark because, as well as his career going up in flames, he's giving interviews which are increasingly worrying. People are very concerned about his mental health, quoting the sad death of another presenter some years ago who was in some similar kind of situation. She eventually took her own life, which was very sad. She committed suicide. And as the press and the media keep sitting outside Philip Schofield's house and pushing this story, people are becoming very worried about him. I saw him yesterday in a TV interview, and he didn't look good. He looked tired, he looked worn, and he looked very, very sad. But as well as all of this, there's a little bit of a suspicion in my mind about this whole story, because it's kind of moving away from what Philip did as to how companies treat employees who have relationships. Because now everyone's looking at the TV company saying, you haven't given this guy any kind of support. The other presenter, Caroline Flack, that I mentioned a moment ago, she was fired when it was discovered that she had been assaulting people. I'm not sure what that story was, but certainly the police were involved and they were going to take her to court after an assault charge upon her boyfriend. So she was classed as a violent woman. She eventually killed herself because of this, and the TV company did not give any support. They simply fired her. And so now people are asking, well, with Philip Schofield, surely they should be offering at least a spokesman on his behalf. In response to all of this, the TV company have launched their own investigation of how they've treated him, but they've not actually offered him any kind of support. Philip Schofield, on the other hand, is now saying, well, this wouldn't have happened if he had a relationship with a woman. He's saying that there's a lot of homophobia involved. So you can see this is beginning to open up something which isn't going to go away. It's about how gay people are treated in society, are treated in the workplace. And it seems strange for me that all of this has just arrived as we enter Pride Month, which, of course, as we all know, is the month of pride parades for gay people. He's also been given exclusive interviews with the BBC. The BBC, of course, is ITV's competitor. So it makes me wonder how much money is being paid to everyone involved. As usual, lots of money probably is exchanging hands. I don't know about Philip Schofield, but amongst the presenters, amongst the producers, the people who come up with these ideas to do these interviews, I'm sure there's big money being passed around. So I'm a little bit cynical about all of this. And although Philip Schofield says he's lost everything, I have a feeling that perhaps he might be popping up soon on some magazine style program on the BBC. Our British way of thinking can be a little bit strange sometimes and a little bit moral. It's true that he told a lie, but is it such a big deal to be fired? You could argue that, well, yes, he broke his employment contract, but I'm sure he's not the first one to have done that. The issue of the boy who is only 20 and Philip is 61, I don't think is important because gay people have a much more open mind with regards to relationships and the age. They often don't meet stereotypical cultural requirements. So that also isn't an issue. So why is this story not going away? There's a few very serious interviews being given here, I think 3 or 4 on the BBC, which at least one of them, I think, the official one, is now available to watch on BBC iPlayer. Of course, it would be in the BBC's best interest to milk this for as much as they can get. ITV, Philip's employer, is of course their competitor. So to say, oh, bad ITV would look very good for them because the BBC itself recently has come under a lot of criticism. Secondly, this issue of gay and gay rights is something which is often promoted in our culture. And it's strange that this all happens around Pride Month. So that's another string to this story. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have these interviews going on where I'm sure are not out of compassion, but are all about money. So I'm a little bit cynical now, especially since this story isn't going away. On the actual program, Philip's old program that he was fired from, they've obviously brought in different presenters, and one of them was crying the other day, oh, poor Philip, we feel sorry for him. He has done a bad thing, but he has said that he's sorry. So they're clearly trying to move on from this and to distance themselves. But they also are using this story to gain more ratings because everyone's watching them wondering if they're ever going to mention it again. We can also use this expression going up in flames as a metaphor for anything which is being destroyed. Philip Schofield's career has gone up in flames. This gradual investigation into ITV's treatment of Philip means that they also could find themselves going up in flames, or at least other people's careers. Other things which can go up in flames, as well as careers and buildings, include things like marriages, relationships. The media, all of last week, has been trying to argue that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, their marriage is going up in flames. It means that they will separate very quickly. I don't know if that's true, but that's another story that seems to be going around. The careers of politicians can go up in flames, and indeed governments can go up in flames, as can democracy. Well, I hope you found this very useful. Let's talk again soon. See you all. Bye.